If work stress is eating you alive and it's affecting everything else in your life, your relationships, your actual work effort, your fitness, this podcast episode is for you. How to unplug in 3 easy ways and get your life back on track. Welcome back to the Chasing a Greater Vision podcast. I'm your host, Rickey Jasper. Today, we're talking about unplugging from work stress. Work can be all-consuming. It can just drain us. It can seep into so many other aspects of life, and we are not immune from being stressed from work. Like, it happens because we care about our jobs. We care about our career. For me specifically, I care very much about my IT career and the progression of that. So it still comes with a lot of stress. But we're going to get into it today. Again, 3 things, and I'll go at it at a high level. First, we're going to learn how to practice a little bit of distress tolerance. Number 2 is we're going to learn how to react differently, not the same habitual way that we do. And number 3, we are going to set stress boundaries. I love this one. This is something that I've learned to do that I think is so beneficial that it was highly underutilized by me, but I very much utilize it now. So we'll get into that now. Why can we feel stressed at work? And especially, I'm speaking more towards, the IT community because that's what I'm a part of. Our jobs might not be progressing the way in which we like, right? We might feel a level of imposter syndrome. Now, when it comes to the IT space, when it comes to the corporate space, we're really put in this kind of contractor position or role, which is great from time to time. But if you're really looking for some security, you're really looking for a level of climbing up the ladder and getting more opportunities, that might not always be the case, right? It's a little bit of a different landscape. Job uncertainty with everything that's going on, a lot of these can cause a lot of stress. And the result of it is, funny enough, it can be low performance at work. It can be low performance at the thing that you actually want to progress in, right? It can be low performance just when it comes to your fitness game. I love fitness. I know when I have very stressful days, when I'm extremely stressed, when I wake up in the morning the next day to try to go to the gym, like, I'm there, but I'm not all there mentally, and I'm really not all there, from a physical standpoint, because I can't really give my all. I can only give, I guess I can give my all, but I can't give it to the ability that I could if I was de-stressed. And then it really translates and really seeps into, relationship or your intimate life, right? So when you all see this, I'll be married by that time. But, I've noticed that any sort of work stress, if I don't create boundaries around it, it really seeps into my relationships. It seeps into the intimacy myself and Carly have, because a lot of my conversation is about the stress at work. So instead of us getting closer together, instead of us really working together and building our lives and stuff like that, it's so negative and it can just weigh heavy on a relationship. And so I've learned a lot from allowing work stress to seep into other aspects of my life that are very, very important. And I've made work almost be the most important thing. And I'll talk about that later. But 3 ways to unplug from work stress. Number 1, we're going to learn to use distress tolerance. So there's one rule that I use on a consistent basis, and there's one question that I ask myself when I'm very stressed. The one rule is I give myself 3 days before I really dive into whatever the stressor is, right? So if something happens at work, or if I'm really stressed about, oh man, there's job uncertainty or anything like that, instead of just feeling that being triggered inside of me and I just feel it and I'm so stressed, I'm going to feel that. But instead of just feeling it and acting impulsively, I give it 3 days. So I'm like, okay, if it's a Monday, I'm not going to engage with this until Thursday, because what that does is it gives me a time allowance to de-stress. It gives me a time allowance to give myself an allowance to actually enjoy my life and get on with my life and get moving with my life, to realize that, hey, this is something that's just stressing me right now, and it might not be real right now, right? Like, I might be just experiencing this and it's not real in any sort of reality. So if I give myself time and I give myself till, let's say, the stressor hits on Monday, I give myself till Thursday, then by the time Thursday rolls around, if I'm still really feeling it, then I'm like, okay, there's something I need to do about this, because maybe there is something that's really happening. If it's not, I'm usually forgot about any sort of issue and stressor, or there's something different that's stressing me by that time, right? The second question I ask myself is, will this matter a year from now? So I've been through a lot of job changes and transitions. If you've been watching my podcast, if you know me, I've gotten laid off about 4 times due to economic conditions. I've had 2 to 3 contracts like abruptly end on me because of budget cuts and things of that nature. So I've transitioned in a lot of jobs. And the one thing that happens the minute you get the call that, hey, the contract's ending early, or hey, like it's a layoff and like here's a severance and so on and so forth. For me, it's like that anger, and then it's also, oh, now I feel very vulnerable because I don't really know what's next. And so what I try to do is say, hey, in a year from now, am I going to care about this? Or in a year from now, am I going to be jobless? And that's never been the case, right? And so knowing that that's never been the case, I don't like to go down a path of just complete catastrophe, right? Because I really like to think like, okay, man, in a year from now, are these things going to matter? So 2 things that you can do from a distress tolerance standpoint: give it time, give it a few days before you really engage and act impulsively. And the second thing is ask yourself, is this going to matter in a year from now? And the other thing I will say from like a year from now is if you do react in a way where you're like, man, this stresses me, and I react in a way that I'll really regret, you want to think, am I acting in a way that in a year from now, it's going to help me or it's going to hurt me, right? Because sometimes your actions, you might do it impulsively and then it affects the rest of your life. Like we see it in so many other aspects of life. I won't get into, but like we see that. So you want to make sure that you are asking yourself some clarifying questions and giving yourself space. Number 2, you want to react differently. I'm somebody, I want to get out of pain immediately. Like when I feel pain, I'm just like, yo, I want to get out, right? And I'm somebody who prides myself on doing hard stuff. Like I love, waking up early, working out, running. I love working hard. I love just, expanding my capacity, pushing myself to the limit, stretching myself as often as I can when it comes to podcasting, when it comes to tech, when it comes to fitness, when it comes to everything, right? But when it comes to a level of discomfort that I don't choose, I want to get out of it immediately. I'm okay putting myself in discomfort that I feel comfortable in the discomfort. But sometimes I am completely like at the will of whatever is stressing me because I didn't choose it, right? So when I don't choose it, then I have a reaction. And typically my reaction is to, I really typically want to quit. And I'm somebody who's always preaching, don't quit. And the reason I preach that is because I'm someone who always wants to quit. And I have to remind myself, and I have to say, if I'm putting out content saying, hey, don't quit, then that means somebody can call me on it and saying, hey, man, like you're saying don't quit, but you're quitting, right? So make sure that you're not giving into impulses. I am I'd say an impulsive person, right? So something hits, I want to get out of pain immediately. I want to do something immediately. I don't want to think through anything. I just want to go. Say the thing, do the thing, get out of the thing, whatever it is. I just want to act so I can get myself, quote unquote, feeling safe, or what I think is safe. It's not always the best thing, right? So if you're extremely stressed and you consistently act in an impulsive way that hinders your growth and hinders you down the line, you want to start to change your habits, right? Allow the discomfort to be there. That's the thing that's helped me the most, is feeling stress, all this stuff. It's like a wave. It's going to come and it's going to go, and it's going to come and it's going to go. And it doesn't mean that when it goes, it's never going to come again. It literally is like a wave. And so what I've learned over time is just to ride the wave and to know that, hey, when it's gone, I can appreciate that it's gone. And that, hey, when it comes back, I'll just like let it flow, and it's going to be there for a little bit, but I don't need to engage with it. And instead of being like an active participant in the stress and making it worse, I can be just a silent observer, and I can step back and I can say, oh man, this is a weird thing that I'm feeling, that I'm going through, but hey, everything so far is safe, family safe, I'm safe. Nothing, has gone crazy awry. Like, let's just ride this wave out. It's just some mental discomfort. And when I'm in a good headspace, then I can make decisions that are helpful. Anytime I've made a decision, this is out of work stuff. Anytime I've made a decision, being angry and saying something that I probably shouldn't have said, got a little too personal with somebody that I shouldn't have, I regret, and I've heavily regretted it. And it's in the moment, it seems like, oh, this is the right thing to do. And I'm sure you've gone through something like that too, where you're like, in the moment, I'm going to give them a piece of my mind. I'm going to do this. I'm going to fight. I'm going to whatever. But then after you see, when you're in the consequence stage, you're like, man, why did I do that? Because when you're in the consequence stage, you're in the right frame of mind, because what's happened is the feelings have flowed away. And so now you're in the right frame of mind that you can actually focus on how you should have responded. So react differently by giving it some time, some space. That goes into the distress tolerance. That's why after 3 days, I say it's 3 days, because it really, really helps me just allow things to be, allow things to flow. And typically after that time, things flow away. So react differently. Number 3, set stress boundaries. So I love this because it allows me to be more present. One of the toughest things for me to do is to actually be present. It's just, if I'm working out, I'm thinking about, if I'm working out in the morning, I'm thinking about the meetings that I have when I get home. If I'm in a meeting, when I'm at work, I'm thinking about the work that I have to do. When I'm, with family and I'm eating dinner, I'm thinking, oh, okay, cool. Well, the pups need to walk after, all that stuff. I can habitually do that, which means that I'm never in the present moment. I'm listening to an audiobook, and it's, what is it called? Don't Sweat the Small Stuff, right? And so that book's been out forever, but I'm listening to the audiobook. And in the audiobook, he says, we are not like human beings, we're human doings. And he's like, we should get back to human beings where we're just allow things to be and we're always just doing. And I realized, man, I'm just consistently doing, right? So when it comes to setting stress boundaries, it allows you to set aside a time to focus on what is stressful to you, right? Instead of just always just going from the next thing to the next thing, focus on just being present, doing that one thing right there. This is the boundary. I'm just going to be present right now. And then when I need to engage with it, because it wraps all the way back to, my rule of distress tolerance, in 3 days or in whatever, benchmark that works for you, that's when in this boundary, I will actually work on it and I will actually think it through, and I'll think it through in the right frame of mind. Boundaries are set every day for us, right? If you're working and you're in IT like me, or if you're in any other corporate job, like you have meetings have boundaries, 30 minutes, 1 hour, 2 hour, whatever it is. And you notice that when meetings overextend their boundaries, it just kind of gets annoying because it's like, it's cutting into other things that you need to do. And it's cutting into other maybe meetings that you have, other conversations that you need to have. That's kind of how I see stress is, if it's outside of a boundary of where it needs to be, it's cutting into other things of life, right? Like I used to be so okay with that until what happens is, for me, if I'm consistently letting stress seep onto my relationship every now and again, okay, cool, I'll vent or whatever. But if this is a consistent thing, what happens is the environment in a different area, which is supposed to have this boundary, blocking it off, now this environment looks the same as a stressful environment. So I'm going from one stress and I'm bringing it to another stress. So both environments become stressful. So now when you set a boundary, you're setting a boundary on, hey, times that you're going to engage with the stress, and the rest, you're just going to be completely present, because what you don't want to do is you don't want to make that stressor just be the consistent thing that drives how you act, how you respond, how you care about your fitness, how you go through your life. Like, we're here for such a short time. We shouldn't go through life always feeling like a bundle of stress and like living for the next, some future point, right? Like, I feel like, and I'm a victim of this sometimes. Like, I'm always living for a future point. I won't say always. I'm doing a lot better at it. But, you don't want to always just live for a future point, because then it's like, well, today is a future point from some point. And if you're not appreciating where you are today, then what are we doing, right? And it's something that I consistently work on, that I hope that you consistently work on as well, to wrap it all up, to unplug from a stressful work environment, work that can come from so many different things. Number one, practice the stress tolerance. Ask yourself, will this matter a year from now? And then put the 3-day rule on it. If it's something that's stressful, that you want to act impulsively, whatever your impulse is, and it doesn't have to just be talking to somebody. It can be, doing something that you probably shouldn't be doing. It could be watching something that you probably shouldn't be. Whatever it is, try to practice, giving it a few days space so you're able to respond instead of react. Number 2, react differently. I should have said respond differently. Yeah, respond differently. Instead of react, respond, right? Be thoughtful about how you respond to the stressor. And number 3, set stress boundaries. There's a time for everything. There's a time for you to re-engage with it, but make sure that you're being present. The areas, and I stress this and I'll end on this. There are so many areas that are so much more important in your life that if you were to pass away or anything were to happen to you, people would be devastated. Like, those things are important. When it comes to work, the company, the thing, it's going to keep going. It's going to find a way. But there's other things that are more important that aren't going to know necessarily how to keep going. They're going to have to pick themselves back up, right? Really dive into those things and focus on those things and focus on the beauty of those things. And if you can just keep those things away from the stress and de-stress yourself enough to be present as you possibly can in those moments, you realize that, wow, those are the moments that matter. That becomes a thing that allows you to deal with the stress, because you're like, oh, but I get to go to this life that I love, that I enjoy, with the people that I love, that I enjoy. So I hope that this message helps you out. This is something that I have learned to do, that I am still learning to do, and that is a continuous process, because just like learning, you can't just stop, studying. You have to keep learning. You're going to hit different things that hit you, and you're going to have to figure out a way to hit back in a certain way. So I hope this message helped you out. If it did, like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you in the next episode. Peace. For free resources, paid resources, and one-on-one coaching with me directly for fitness coaching and performance coaching using my life coding system, go to RickeyJasperII.com, and I will see you there, and we'll talk directly, and we'll make it happen.